Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This channel is dedicated to finding out whether I really do know it all or not. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video, and make sure you ask questions in the comments or at my email address, which is at the end of the video or in the description below, so check it out. Today, I'm not really going to look and answer a question because this is related to another question that I was talking about a viewer with on email. And I was like, oh, actually, this is super important and we should actually talk about it. And honestly, online, it's not really discussed all that much. That is the question of, why are water resistance ratings on watches ridiculous? I guess that's the quick way to put it. So what that means is, like, you get a watch that is rated to say 30 meters or something like that. And then you look at the instructions and they say you can wash your hands or wear this in the rain, but don't wear this watch swimming. Or don't get it wet too often or something. And you're like, wait, it's water resistance rated to 30 meters. That is a long ways. 1 meter is like, if I go way back like that, right? That's about a meter. So, or 3 feet. So if it's rated to 30 meters, it's almost 100 feet. So it's like, what the hell? It seems kind of like a scam. And in all honesty, it kind of is a scam. So, I think it's a really valuable topic to talk about. I think the way to think about this first is actually, let's talk about what is water resistance and what is water pressure, and why does a watch have to have water resistance ratings or anything like that. So right now, assuming you're at sea level or close to it, you've got approximately 1 bar or 15 point something pounds per square inch of pressure all over you. And that is that all of the atmosphere from space all the way down to the top of your head is squeezing you. It's pushing you at approximately 1 bar or 15 pounds per square inch. And what that means is that there's pressure on everything. So anything that has air in it like this has pressure on it, and that pressure is forcing the watch, inward. It's forcing our bodies inward. Now, of course, we're evolved to handle that kind of pressure, so no big deal. But when you go in water, it's a different story because water is way denser than air. So every 10 meters or about 33 feet down you go, that increases the pressure by 1 atmosphere or 1 bar or 15 psi, however you want to call it. So these watches have to be rated to that, right? Because this is filled up with air right now. It's ambient air. So assuming that I'm at 1 bar right now, and I've unscrewed the crown of this watch, and actually I'm going to go ahead and take it off so I can go ahead and show it. I've done many videos on this watch. Actually, I'm going to put right up here some links. There's a whole bunch of videos that I've done on watches, so watch them at your leisure. Get it? Watch them. Anyway, so this has air pressure in it. It's ambient. When I unscrew the crown, it basically allows air in, and so it's at the ambient air pressure. But if I dive down, if I go down 10 meters or 33 feet, it's got a whole other atmosphere of pressure on it all of a sudden. And that pushes on it, and it could break it, or water could leak in through the seals if it's not done right. This watch damn well better not have that problem because it's a dive watch, and we'll talk about that. But basically, every time you go down 10 meters or 33 feet, you're increasing the atmospheric pressure by 1. So in fact, all watches that are rated for water resistance are actually rated to atmospheres. And then what they do is they convert that to meters or feet. And so this guy, it says 300 meters or 1,000 feet, which is an approximate equivalent amount. And so what that means is that's 30 atmospheres. So every 10 meters down, you go up another atmosphere. So 30 times the ambient pressure of the atmosphere here. That's a lot, right? So that'd be kind of like taking a truck and driving it over this and smashing it from every angle at that amount. So that's what water pressure is. And the reason why it can screw up watches is because, like I said, if they're not properly sealed, they can allow water to come in. All of that pressure can, force water in. And that can, of course, ruin the mechanism because it's the second you get water in a mechanical environment, it's going to rust and bad things are going to happen. So the watch will break. So now we get to the question of, what is up with the water resistance ratings, and why are they so far out of whack with what you're really allowed to or supposed to do? So, okay, so let's take a watch that's rated to 30 or 50 meters. That's kind of the basis. If you have like a super dress watch, it may not be rated to any water resistance at all. And in that case, don't even wash your hands with it. Like you shouldn't get near water with a watch like that. But many watches have a water resistance rating of at least 3 atmospheres or 30 meters. Or 100 feet or something like that. And so you're like, well, hell, I mean, under all circumstances except scuba diving, I'm never going to go that deep, so I should be able to use this for any purpose whatsoever. The reason why it's not right is because it's several reasons. Number one is kind of like cars. In the US, there's the EPA, and I can't remember what the equivalent is in Europe, but there's a governmental body that actually tests sample cars, right? So your Volkswagen Jetta or something like that. And they'll put it in lab conditions and they'll drive it and they'll give you what the EPA gas mileage rating is or kilometer rating or something like that. So, right. So in the United States, it might say 35 miles per gallon. The likelihood that you're actually going to get 35 miles per gallon is pretty low because they're driving it on kind of like perfect ideal conditions. So it's like a target amount. And you can think about the watch water resistance ratings a little bit like that. They're kind of target amounts, but it does feel a little bit more like a scam because you're like, okay, well, this thing says it's rated to 30 meters. And then you're telling me that I can wash my hands, but I can't take it in a swimming pool where it might be like maybe a meter below the surface, right? There's a couple of reasons why. Number one, first of all, any watch manufacturer can put any rating they want to on it. There are ISO or International Standards Organizations numbers that are attached to these values, but a company actually, it's only voluntary that they're actually doing the tests that ISO requests. The first ISO rating is ISO 2281 horology. Horology just meaning watches or having to do with time. And that's a basic amount, which means that there is some water resistance value, which means that it is sealed. Now, what does that mean? First of all, again, a company doesn't actually have to do this, but if they're compliant with this ISO standard, it means that they are testing. Every once in a while, they'll pull a watch off the production line. One watch out of maybe 100 or something like that, right? And they'll stick it in a water tank, in a static water pressure tank, and they put it in. Actually, what I think normally what happens is, so that they don't ruin the watch, they actually put it in atmosphere, and so it's in air, but there's water below it, and they pump up the air to, say, 3 atmospheres or 5 atmospheres, so equivalent of 50 meters underwater, and they let it sit for a period of time, like maybe 10 minutes or an hour or something, and then they take it and they dunk it in the water, and then they release the pressure, and if air has gotten into the watch at overpressure, as the air pressure is released on top, of course, the water pressure will go down and there will be bubbles that will come out of the watch. So it's kind of backwards from the way you think, but that's what's called static testing. That's one watch out of maybe 100, and it's only tested one time, and it's tested statically, which means that it's not being moved around, right? You're not swimming with the watch. You're not doing this. You're not banging it. You're not bumping it, etc., etc. So there is a reason why they'd say like, okay, this is rated to 50 meters, but it's not every single watch. So your watch was likely not tested, the one that you actually purchased. And additionally, the watch was tested under laboratory type conditions. So it made it to 30 meters, but it was only under lab conditions. It seems a little cheesy. I could say like, okay, so it made it to 30 meters under lab conditions, but it still should be able to do 15 or 20 meters, or at least 10, right? You should be able to take it snorkeling or swimming all you want. But for whatever reason, that's not what the stated value is. So even though they'll say it's rated to 30 or 50 meters, they'll still say only wash your hands or wear it in the rain. Don't do anything more aggressive than that with it. On a whole other level are dive watches. So this is an Omega Seamaster 300, and it is rated to 300 meters. That's why it's 300, or 1,000 feet. Those are, in order to be called diver's watches or to have a diver's rating, as opposed to saying water resistance to 100 meters, if they say something like diver's professional or whatever, or diver's rating or water resistance, if it's called a diver's watch, then that rating, so like the Seiko SKX 007, I'll throw a picture of that up, that's a diver's rating of 200 meters. And what that means is is that they test, number one, every single watch is tested. Number two, it's tested to 25% beyond the rating. So if that's 200 meters, that's an extra 50 meters that it's tested. So it's actually tested at 250 meters. It's tested under multiple temperature conditions, and it's also subject to getting like banged and knocked around and stuff. So that there are multiple tests that go on, and that means that the watch is substantially more water resistant. It's like every single watch has proved that it's water resistant to beyond the depth, with new seals, of course, and everything, and that it withstands all this other stuff. That ISO rating is ISO 6425, or the diver's watch standard. So that's a whole different matter. And for a watch like that, you should be able to take that watch to its rated depth. So if this guy says it's rated to 300 meters, I should be able to take it to that depth and not worry about that. Now, of course, I'm not going to dive to 300 meters. I'm not going to get beyond 40 or 50 meters at the most. So these are far, far overdone beyond what's required of them. But one of the reasons why, of course, beyond bragging rights, because, there's like 1,000-meter dive watches and so forth and so on. And that gives you bragging rights because you're like, ooh, I've got a diver's rated 1,000-meter dive watch. But beyond that, the deal is that as this watch ages, so let's say this watch was 10 years old. No, it's never been serviced. Well, 10 years ago, it was rated to 300 meters. What is it now? Right? So with older seals and everything, A, you should probably get it checked out, but B, if you're only diving to say 40 meters or something, then you're probably still safe, right? Because it was so over-engineered that even after time and even after the seals have gotten older and so forth, it still should be good. So anyway, that's the kind of deal with this. The two different ISO standards are quite different. And the reason why dive watches cost so much more money, if you look at it, a normal watch that's just rated to 200 meters, let's say it costs like $100, to get the equivalent 200-meter diver's watch might cost you $200 or $300 or more. There's a lot of expense that goes into testing them, and there's of course also a lot of expense that goes into building a watch that's actually for real rated to that rating. So, and that's where I feel like the kind of scammy thing comes in. I feel like divers' watches are legitimate, right? If they're telling you that rating, they've actually tested it to beyond that rating. So you're going to get that type of water resistance, and you can take it to those depths, and you can be confident in that. If you just get a watch that says WR 30 meters or something like that, yeah, you're taking your chances. It's a bit of a scam. What it means is that there's some kind of sealing going on, but you definitely should not be attempting to wear it to any kind of crazy depth or anything like that, or even wear it in the pool, just basically washing dishes or maybe taking a shower or getting caught in the rain. Perhaps if a watch is just given a standard water resistance rating of 100 meters or something, then maybe you could wear it for swimming. Oftentimes the watch pamphlet that comes with the watch will give you some information about that. It might say this is safe for swimming up to 3 meters deep. And you're like, well, wait a second, the watch is rated to 100 meters and it says you can only swim up to 3 meters deep. That's like, what? Whatever that is, I would pay much more attention to the material that comes with the watch and says what you're allowed to do with that watch rather than the rating itself, because the rating is kind of a BS rating for most watches. Again, if you have a dive watch, if it says divers 200 or something, or divers 300, you can be confident that that is actually an accurate number and you're okay. And you can wear that for, again, diving or any other purpose that you want. Or just for bragging rights. If you have a diver's 1,000-meter watch, you're like, woohoo, right? So you can do that. But anyway, the regular ISO 2281 is a kind of a worthless rating, honestly. So that's the long and short of it. If you have a diver's watch that is ISO 6425 compliant, you can count on that water rating. If you have an ISO 2281 that just says WR some number, I wouldn't count on that. Again, if you get caught in a rainstorm, nothing bad's going to happen. But I certainly would not take it swimming or even in the shower or anything like that. I would be very careful with that watch. So again, that's the reason why I think it's a bit of a scam to say that something's rated to 30 meters when you can barely even get it wet. But that's just my thoughts on the subject. Anyway. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's another watch episode, and if you have more watch questions, I really enjoy doing those. So by all means, ask, or any other questions in the comments or at my email address, which is drknowitallknows@gmail.com. And meantime, if you like the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button and you subscribe to the channel for more. Till next time, bye-bye.